In observation of the MLK holiday, we'll look at the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hey troopers, I'm Mr. J, and this episode we're showing love by honoring who we all know as MLK. So let's flash back to where it all started, January the 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin Luther King Jr. was born to the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and his mother, Alberta Williams King. King grew up in what has become known as the Williams House, named after his grandfather. The young King was originally known as Michael King Jr. after his father's name. In 1934, on their arrival back home from a trip to Europe, Reverend King added Luther to his name and his young sons as a tribute to Martin Luther, a Protestant leader in Germany. He grew up with an older sister and a younger brother and became an assistant to his father at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in his hometown in Atlanta. In 1944, he started his first semester at Morehouse College. He was only 15 years old. In 1948, he attended Crozer Theological Seminary for 3 years and later went on to get his PhD in systematic theology from Boston University. He met Coretta Scott when he was attending school in Boston. In 1953, the two married at the home of Coretta's parents in Alabama and raised a family of 4 children, starting with Yolanda in November 1955, followed by Martin Luther III in October of 1957, Dexter in January 1961, and Bernice in March of 1963. His active participation in the civil rights movement began in 1955 with the Montgomery bus boycott inspired by Rosa Parks. In 1956, after 381 days, bus segregation was ruled illegal by the U.S. Supreme Court. He organized the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and used it as a platform to speak to race-related topics. In 1959, he went to India to meet with the family of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1960, he became co-pastor with his father at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. Dr. King used the media to spread the word, and his participation in sit-ins and protests landed him in jail on more than one occasion. One of his most profound writings came through a letter from the Birmingham jail. In 1963, he took part in the historic March on Washington. An estimated 250,000 peaceful participants gathered at the Lincoln Memorial, and MLK Jr. delivered what is now known as his most famous speech, "I Have a Dream."
In what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
In 1964, he was the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 35, and it was for his unrelenting work in the civil rights movement. It was in March in 1965 he led 1,500 people, consisting of both black and white, on a march outside of Selma. This was to demonstrate the desire of African American citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Later on that year, Congress went on to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. When changes began happening in the Civil Rights Movement, Dr. King turned his attention to poor people and the Vietnam War. These are the words of his last speech.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Martin Luther King's life was brought to an abrupt end when he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, April the 4th, 1968. Dr. Martin Luther King is known for his powerful speeches and motivating words. As a true reflection of Christ-like character, Dr. King will always be remembered as a leader for all people who never chose fear, but always chose courage and determination. Now, if you like what we're doing, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. I'm Mr. J, reminding you to continue to keep showing love, and I'll catch you on the next episode.